How's everyone doing? Thanks for joining me in the garage. Today's project is this Brute push mower, and so far I've diagnosed a no start condition as being a lack of spark. So let me just show you what I mean here. I'm just going to put you down. I got my spark tester there, and I'm going to go ahead and show you guys that this thing does not have any spark. So I'll pull it over a couple times. Alright, so there you can see there's absolutely no spark showing on that spark tester. So now we need to go ahead and diagnose why there is no spark. So there's a bunch of different reasons why there could be no spark. You could have a bad ignition coil, you could have a bad grounding wire, maybe your brake cable is not pulling far enough to release the ground. So there's a bunch of different things we got to go ahead and try and go through to diagnose this problem. So I've already taken some of the bolts off to hold this top cover so that we can get access to our ignition coil. So here's our ignition coil right here. There should be a gap between the ignition coil and the flywheel of about 0.010 of an inch right here, and I've already tested that gap, and it is actually about 0.010 of an inch, so that's not our problem. The next problem we could have is the grounding system. Okay, so here is a wire that we connect from the ignition coil, and it wraps around here to the back side to an assembly back here, which is connected to our brake handle up top. So I've got that brake handle already released, or it's actually clamped up there. So what we're going to do is I'm going to take this guy off, this cover, so we can kind of investigate there to see if the brake cable is indeed pulling the assembly far enough. So what we're really looking for here is right here. The wire comes back up through and goes into this little slot right there. So this arm right here where the wire is connected to will make contact with this arm right here, which is actually connected to the brake and this cable. So when I pull that, this whole assembly moves clockwise, releases the brake, which is part of the reason why it will stop if you let it go, and it also grounds this out by touching this piece of metal with this piece of metal, which is then attached through this wire all the way around to your ignition coil, and grounds it out and really prevents the spark from happening. So I don't know if some of you can already tell what I think is the problem here, and this might be difficult, but I remember I have this brake cable handle already clamped in the open position, so I don't know if you guys can tell. Let's see if we can focus this a little better. So right here, and it is super hard to see this. Can't even really get a good shot of it, to be honest. But you'll have to take my word for it. This little arm right there, this little arm right here is still touching this plate. So that means that this is still grounded. So this is grounded, which means that our ignition coil is actually not going to make spark because it's grounded out. Now, I don't know if you can see this, but let me get you in this angle here. Take a look at this arm. See how it's bent down? I think this is our problem here. So if I bend this back watch what happens to this arm right here. If I bend this up, watch as I bend this up right here. See this guy here? It's actually moving further away. It's also moved this brake pad further away as well. And now, hopefully you might be able to see this. Try and zoom in for you. Well, that's as far as it'll zoom in. So this arm right here, the end of my fingernail, is no longer touching this plate. You can see there's a gap between those two. So now let's test to see if we have any spark. Alright, as you can see, we do definitely have spark there now. So that was our problem. So another way you could have probably sort of got to that point eventually, what I like to do is that I like to take off this ground wire, which basically completely removes that grounding assembly at all altogether, and that way I can tell if it's in the coil or if it's in the ground system. Okay. A couple other things you might want to try as well that has worked for me in the past is the flywheel here. It has some magnets, and if those are all rusty from sitting or the ends of this coil are rusty, then you're not going to get a nice clean spark. Alright guys, well hopefully that was helpful in diagnosing an ignition problem on a small engine here on a lawnmower. So if you like the content, if maybe you learned something, go ahead and click the like button and the subscribe button. It really helps me out on my channel. And until next time guys, take care.